So from my understanding, my grandfather, his name was Shepherd Johnson, he was the product of a slave master. His mother was 13 when she had him. And that was in Alabama, I believe, on my grandfather's side. And then on my grandmother's side, I do remember my great-grandmother telling us stories of how she, when she was growing up, how people would, well, I guess that's a different story, but but yeah, it doesn't go past D-land and Alabama, as far as from what I can tell.
The migration story of my family comes from South Carolina, the Gullah AME Church. My grandmother and my father all came from South Carolina, and my mother came from New Orleans, Louisiana, and she was Creole. So it was Creole, Gullah, and we all made that great migration to New York, up north, the north. They were all of my family members. The oldest family members were Southern that moved for that opportunity in the North, and that's a lot of our family story.
So the most interesting part of the migration story is my dad's mother, probably. So the dates are gonna get a little confusing. My dad was significantly older than my mom. So his mom came in from Poland in the early 1900s. She came in as the twin of another girl, even though she's not a twin at all. And when they questioned about her birth certificate, the family said, "Oh, they're twins. There's only one birth certificate." And when President Reagan in, I guess, the 80s, not good at my presidents, offered amnesty to immigrants, she continued to lie and say she was 4 years younger than she was, which I would do too, I think. And then my mom's side, they immigrated from Sicily, and I just learned today, actually, my great-grandmother was a grocer, a bootlegger, and a bookie, and owned an entire corner that she rented to other people.
Most of again, I know mostly things on my maternal side. My father's side is kind of lost to me at the moment. But on the maternal side, it's mostly in the South. We spend mostly time, there's Alabama, there's a little Mississippi, and majority of the time is in Georgia. And then I have uncles, great uncles on my grandfather's brothers. I know that they traveled, but I only know through hearsay. And the reigning name, I think, has gone as far as California and stuff like that. But predominantly manifests in the South. And then my personal migration story, I was born in Atlanta, but then my stepfather moved us to New Jersey, and that's where I really feel that I grew up as a person. So then we came back to Georgia, and even though I really identify with a Yankee mindset, I have Southern bones. So that's my personal migration story, and it kind of affects my worldview, how I see things. But I'm Southern, but I have a Yankees heart. So, and I was educated up north, so I think that also affects the way I think and so forth. So that's my personal migration story, but my family's bones and DNA, strictly South.
My family's migration story, my mother migrated over from Scotland and had my brother and I, and got married, and then moved back to Scotland for a brief amount of time, and then back here into the States. And that was something that I never realized when I was younger was odd or strange or not typical. I guess I always thought we were going to live in Scotland or stay there. And yeah, I guess I'm an American now. Stayed here for quite some time.
Oh, it's multiple. It sort of depends on what side we're coming from. So from what we found, my mother's side came through the transatlantic slave trade from present-day Nigeria. And then my father's side mostly came through the transatlantic slave trade through present-day Mali or around that region. Per the records, and per talking with older members of the family, my mother's side came in through its ports in South Carolina. So that's where they entered. So we've always been along this Gullah Geechee corridor. And the same for my father's. Like, I actually found one of the bill of sales for my great-great-great-great-grandfather's mother and him as a baby between two plantations in North Carolina. So the Carolinas seem to be the entry point of both sides of my family.
As I can remember from my mom speaking to my grandmother, and this is as far back as I can remember, so not like super duper far, but they migrated from Georgia to, where did they go first? To Central Florida, like Orlando, DeLand, Sanford is where I was born, Sanford, Florida, Seminole County. And then my mom moved to Jacksonville, so we haven't really moved a lot. And as far as migrating on my father's side, I do not know how far. However, I do have a friend that I will hold accountable to this as a birthday gift they wanted to gift me with. I can't remember the DNA test that they have. They have so many now. To kind of trace my lineages from Africa. And so I'm excited to really learn that.
As far as I know, a good bit of the elders in my family were raised in South Georgia. A lot of them due to various reasons, for work, for marriage, or just, adventure, kind of venturing out, did migrate down to Florida. But beyond that, where they came from before Georgia, I don't know that story. And unfortunately, in my family, we're kind of losing a lot of elders in our family this year. And the one elder in our family who held a lot of that information passed away this year as well.
To my knowledge, my father's father originally came from Philadelphia, and my father's mother came from, I think, just in a small little town in Cape Charles, Virginia. So I think that he migrated there, and then they met, and then opened up an antique store a little bit later on in their life. And then my father grew up there, and then went on to teach at a community college in that same kind of area, and then he just kind of stayed there. And then on my mother's side, I believe that they're all from a little town in New Hampshire called Jaffrey. So that's where the big family was kind of grew up, and then kind of from there, each kind of aunt and uncle, some remained there, some went to Oklahoma, to California, to a lot of different places.
My great-grandmother and my great-grandfather came here, I'm not sure, but I believe it's between 1950s, a little bit earlier than that. They got married, and they had 2 children, my grandma Sue and my grandma Jenny. And they are also here in the Americas. They both really enjoy their Indian heritage and their Scottish heritage, and so they try to pass that down quite often to their grandchildren. My father and his father both come from Turks and Caicos Island. They came here when my father was in his early 20s, and they really just wanted to create a better life for themselves.
Well, my father was from Sylvester, Georgia, predominantly him and his family. And my mother, she was raised in the heart of Arlington, in the Cosmo area, predominantly is where her family was raised in. And then also, in terms of my family connecting to the Kingsley plantation on my mother's side, it was actually kind of ironic how that happened. I was reading a book in high school in American history, and I'm reading, and I come across this name, Bartley. So I'm like, wait a minute, that was my mother's maiden name, and that's my grandmother's last name. So I asked her about it when I got home, and she was like, yeah, we trace all the way back to the Kingsley Plantation, and there's plenty of Bartlett's here in Jacksonville, which I already knew, but I just didn't know about the Kingsley Plantation connection, you know, and it was really freaky kind of seeing your mother's last name in the book, or maiden last name in the book. So, yeah.